Hi, my name is Beatrice, and I'm from a little town in Michigan. Ever since we were little, my sister Angela and I competed in everything. Grades, boys, mom's attention, everything. I always won. Angela didn't even come close. But one day, she did. Pencils and ripped papers flew in the air and scattered everywhere. I held scissors in one hand and a blowtorch in the other. Angela cowered in a corner of the room, terrified and helpless. You call this art? I kicked one of the drawing books like it was a football. I'm gonna burn it all today. Beatrice, don't. Or what? Mom bought me those. Doesn't mean you deserve them. The blowtorch slipped from my hands and fell to the floor. Angela and I fought for it, but she didn't match my strength. Jealousy and rage were fueling me. I held the blowtorch ready to light it and grabbed her tattered drawing book. She took another step forward, and before she could take another one, I set her book on fire and pointed the blowtorch at her. Don't come any closer, Angela. She stood back, horrified. I never meant to scare her, but I was too enraged to care or let her save the book. You must be wondering what's going on here. Do you want to find out? Then please subscribe and keep watching. Angela was not book smart, but she was a great artist. I hated that I couldn't draw as well as her. Mom praised her and showed off her drawings to all her friends. One day, we came home from school to find an expensive set of pencils and a new drawing book on the kitchen table. The moment Angela saw them, her eyes lit up. There was a note from Mom congratulating her for winning the latest school art competition. And that's how I found myself with a pair of scissors and a blowtorch in my hands. She was inconsolable, and tears mixed with mascara rolled down her face. I was grounded, of course, but that didn't stop me from sneaking out whenever I wanted. I was hurrying down the school hallway when someone rounded a corner and walked right into me. My bag slipped from my shoulder and fell to the floor, spilling books and pens everywhere. Watch where you're going. Why don't you watch where you're going? You clearly bumped into me, I was about to say something really mean, but my anger evaporated when I saw that it was Cliff, my longtime crush. Oh. Hey, I'm Beatrice. He bent to collect my bags and the books that had fallen out. That's when I saw it. One of Angela's ugly drawing books with her ugly drawings on display. How did it even get in my bag? Cliff was staring at it. Oh no. Did he think that I drew that? He picked up the book and flipped through a few pages. Did you draw all these? Of course not. These are incredible. You're so talented. Can we maybe hang out after school so I can see all of them? Wait, what? He liked them? Okay, I needed to make a choice. Fast. I could A, tell Cliff the truth that the drawing book was not mine, or B, lie to him and get to hang out with him. What would you choose if you were me? A or B? Earth to Beatrice, hello. Oh, sorry, did you say something? Can we hang out later? Sure. Did he even have to ask? I spent the rest of the day smiling and daydreaming about Cliff. Every time we passed each other in the hallways, he smiled and winked at me. Also, did you notice that I never told him that the drawings were mine? I just let him think they were. So, I didn't exactly lie, right? Cliff lived in a freaking palace. The first time he invited me over, my jaw dropped. Wow, are you like rich? I blurted out without thinking and Cliff laughed. Nah, this is my grandpa's house. He's the rich one. I've lived with him since my parents died. Aww, Cliff was telling me his life story and this made me feel so close to him. Did you bring the book? I was confused for a minute and then I remembered Angela's stupid book. Ugh. I took it out of my bag and handed it to him. For the next hour or so, Cliff admired the drawings in the book instead of focusing on me. Like, hello? Did he not know that he was sitting in the presence of the prettiest girl in school? Ugh, boys could be so annoying. He finally looked up from the book, smiling. We were on the couch, so I slid closer to him.
How about you draw me?
What? I stood up too fast, tripped on a coffee table, and went sprawling on the carpet. Talk about embarrassing.
You're quite clumsy.
Cliff was laughing as he helped me sit up.
So, how about I pose for you right here?
I was so busted. I couldn't even draw a straight line, you guys.
Come on, B, please.
He made the most adorable face and called me B. No one ever called me that before. However, my mind was racing and I had to come up with an excuse. I don't have my pencils right now.
I have some.
I only use mine.
We can go get them.
I left them at school and, it's closed at this time.
We can go buy some.
I don't have any money on me.
I do.
Ah, well, I was out of excuses. Just then, his phone rang and I was so relieved. It was his grandpa calling. He needed Cliff to run an errand. Phew, that was close. It wasn't until I got home that I realized that I'd left Angela's book with Cliff. Looking back, I realized that this was the beginning of my downfall. The next day at school, Cliff snuck up on me and covered my eyes with his hand.
Guess what I'm holding?
I didn't get the chance to answer him because Angela interrupted us. Where did you get that? Cliff uncovered my eyes, and what I saw filled me with fear.
B left this at my house yesterday. I'm just returning it to her.
I've been looking everywhere for that book. She snatched it from Cliff, but before she could say anything else, the bell rang. Cliff walked away and so did Angela, but not before she gave me the death stare. I knew I was in trouble. After school, I went home dreading what Angela was going to do. What if she told Cliff that the book was hers and not mine? He'd never speak to me again. I pushed our front door open and I couldn't believe what I saw. Angela was taking cash from Mom's wallet. Are you stealing from Mom? I'm so going to tell. You have no proof. Oh yeah? I quickly took a photo of her with the wallet in her hands. Say cheese. She tried to snatch my phone, but I jumped out of the way. I own you now. What do you want? I thought about it for a minute and came up with the perfect idea. I want you to draw a portrait of Cliff and give it to me. Also, you're not gonna tell him that the ugly book belongs to you. Why? No questions, just do it. Geez, okay, but you say a single word to Mom about this and the deal is off. I sent Angela a selfie of Cliff and a few days later, she was done. I had to admit, she'd done a great job. At school, I gave Cliff the portrait and he was so impressed that he kissed me for the first time. My friends practically worshipped me after that. They wanted to know how it felt kissing the hottest boy in school. I loved their attention and their obvious jealousy. A week later, Cliff walked into class excited.
B, I have great news. Grandpa Zeus saw the portrait you did for me and loved it so much. He wants to pose for you so you can do a full one of him. He's offering you a lot of money.
Pose for me?
Yeah, at the mansion. Once you're done, he'll throw a big party to unveil it and show it off.
The pressure was becoming too much. Can I think about it? Cliff's excitement disappeared instantly.
What's there to think about?
I don't know,
You have to do it, B. Grandpa is all I have left, and the portrait would make him so happy. Not to mention, you'll be rich.
I couldn't take it anymore. I stood up and ran out of class, leaving a confused Cliff behind. That evening, I told my family everything, including the part about blackmailing Angela for stealing. Angela was furious. You stole my drawing book and used it to get yourself a boyfriend? What does it matter? I'm gonna lose, Cliff. Stop talking, both of you. We will not lose this opportunity. Angela, you'll draw the old man. It's the least you could do after you stole my money. And Beatrice, I will deal with you later. Now here's the plan. Mom's plan was genius. I would agree to do the portrait, and when Cliff's grandpa took his pose, I'd take a photo and send it to Angela. She'd be at home with all her tools, ready to draw an exact image of the photo. I, on the other hand, would pretend to draw the old man. On the day of the party, Mom would sneak the portrait into the mansion disguised as a cleaning lady, and we'd swap it with my blank one. Perfect, right? What could go wrong? Apparently, everything. A few days later, Angela was done. On the morning of the unveiling party, Mom snuck in and handed me the portrait. Angela had wrapped it in paper, just like Mr. Zeus had requested me to do. We swapped them easily and she left with the blank one. I carried the wrapped portrait to the huge living room where Mr. Zeus and his friends were waiting. Cliff and a few of my classmates were there too. I was surprised to see Angela present too. Why was she here?
Everyone, this is Beatrice, the talented young lady I've been telling you about.
Angela rolled her eyes. Seriously, why was she here? When he had everyone's attention, Mr. Zeus ripped the wrapping paper from the framed portrait, and everyone gasped. The room went deathly silent. Then, Mr. Zeus exploded.
Is this some kind of joke?
I stared at the portrait in horror. Mr. Zeus looked like a caricature with red horns growing out of his head. Angela! She gave me an evil smile. Enjoy your 15 minutes of fame, sis. Cameras flashed everywhere. Sometimes I really hate smartphones.
Get out of my house and take that horrible thing with you.
I turned to Cliff, but he looked just as angry as his grandfather. I'm so sorry. I had lost an opportunity to be rich and my boyfriend, all in one day. Someone drew giant horns on my locker. Cliff was ignoring me. I had no idea if he knew the entire truth. During lunch, I noticed Angela staring at Cliff, then drawing in her sketchbook. Instantly, I knew what she was doing. She was drawing him. Cliff got up with his tray and started to leave, but Angela ran to him, waving the paper in his face. She was going to show him the drawing and put the last nail in my coffin. Not on my watch. I bolted from my seat and managed to grab the paper before she could give it to Cliff. I tore it in half and threw it in the trash can.
What are you doing?
Without answering, I grabbed Cliff's hand to pull him out of there before he saw the sketch Angela had made of him.
Let go of my hand, Beatrice.
I dropped his hand and he reached for the ripped paper in the trash can. I watched as he put the two pieces together and realized what it was. He looked from me to Angela, waiting for an explanation. Should I tell him or will you, Bea? Angela looked so pleased with herself. Defeated, I fell to the ground and cried, revealing everything to Cliff. I begged him to forgive me, but he walked away angry. A few weeks later, Angela received a similar proposal as before, to draw a portrait of Grandfather Zeus and to be paid a hefty amount for it. Only this time, Cliff, who'd broken up with me, would be watching the process from beginning to end. Angela smiled and agreed to draw 2 different portraits for him. One to make up for the previous one, and the second which she would be paid for. I had no choice but to be supportive of my sister's good fortune, painful as it was.